Now, motorists must brace themselves for a massive fuel price hike next month. That's the warning from economists and analysts as government's temporary fuel levy reprieve comes to an end on the 31st of May. Let's speak to Layton Beard from the Automobile Association of South Africa, who joins us now. Good morning, Mr. Beard. Now, are the anticipated increases purely going to be as a result of the fuel levy interventions coming to an end, or are there possibly other factors like the current war?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing at the moment, Mfundo, is that the so-called under and over recovery is indicating quite significant increases off the bat. And obviously we have to then calculate in the fact that this relief that was given in the form of a cut to the general fuel levy of R1.50 also comes to an end at May. But it is still very early in the month. And I think we need to appreciate the fact that fuel prices are calculated on averages and not on any given day's numbers. So to speculate now that there's going to be significant increases at the end of the month, I think is a little premature. We have to wait for all the numbers to come in. We have to see what the averages at the end of the month give us. And when I speak about the averages, I'm talking about the average exchange rate to the US dollar and the average international and oil prices, because that's how the government calculates what the fuel price increase is going to be or decrease is going to be. So it's still very early in the month. We're not even halfway through the month. So a lot could happen between now and when the price is actually adjusted going into June. Mm-hmm. The one thing we obviously know is that, this relief measure is coming to an end, and that is concerning to us. And I think that without that relief measure, there could be, a significant increase either way to the fuel prices.
Mm-hmm. But then what could be a more permanent solution to cushion us in times such as these, which we've seen, where there are global events that impact us adversely? Because it doesn't seem Treasury is anywhere closer to finding ways to make up for that 90 billion shortfall that they spoke of. So what would happen if we cannot have full deregulation?
Yeah, I think that's the $100 question. The government, through the Minister of Finance, announced the relief measure in February going into April and May, or in March going into April and May, of this R1.50 cut to the general fuel levy. And he noted at that time that this was a temporary measure and that the government was considering other proposals, such as, putting a cap on the price of certain fuels. So we are obviously waiting to see what government is going to do in terms of its management of the fuel price going forward from June, because it's said that it is looking at doing certain things, and now we are waiting to see what those proposals are and what they are planning to do. So I think everybody is eagerly awaiting the outcome from government as to what it plans to go ahead. So it's very difficult to comment now until we know exactly what the plans are. Mm-hmm. There's many pros and cons for deregulation and maintaining regulation. But again, I think, to speak of those things without having any proposals on the table from government is also premature.
Mm-hmm. So meaning we should expect some sort of communication just before the 31st, because going into June, it's not sustainable for ordinary citizens. I mean, at this rate, people will start riding bicycles. It's very difficult.
It certainly is very difficult. And it's not only a question of transport. I think we need to be very clear on that fact. Rising fuel costs obviously have an immediate impact on people with vehicles. And it certainly does have a negative impact on those people who need to get around. But the fact is that rising fuel costs filter into the economy in all sorts of ways. Sure. And because it's such a huge input cost for many sectors, their costs will absorb these increases by passing those increases on to consumers. So when the fuel price goes up, every single consumer in the country feels the pain. And, I don't know when government is going to make an announcement on what it plans to do going forward. But certainly, I think, we'd expect something towards the middle or the second half of the month, to prepare people for what may be coming in June, if anything.
There's an interesting point that you touch on, that it actually affects everybody, the whole economy, because, at this point, we don't even have reliable energy, which then means those that have generators have to utilize diesel, and now diesel has gone up. It's honestly expensive. And then we also heard the Transport Minister speaking of some sort of electric charging stations, more electric charging stations. But how feasible is even that, given the issues around reliable energy?
Yeah, I think the issue of charging stations is something, that would obviously require a lot more discussion. The uptake of electric vehicles in South Africa has been quite low, and there are a number of reasons for that. The regulatory environment is one very important reason. Obviously, I mean, in terms of fuel usage and fuel costs, we're seeing, even the electricity supply utility, Eskom, having to buy diesel, which is costing billions of rands to them. So, yes, I mean, when the price of fuel goes up, everybody feels the pain. And it may not be something that people recognize immediately. You may be paying, 10 cents extra for this and 10 cents extra for that, but the cumulative effect is obviously quite harsh. And for people with low or no incomes, these increases do come as a shock, and they do present very, very big challenges. So I think it is necessary for us to find ways to mitigate against rising fuel costs, and that's exactly why the AA has been urging government to review the structure of the fuel price with a way to actually deal better with these rising costs.
Mr. Beard, thank you very much for your time. That's Layton Beard from Automobile Association.